Kurt Henke is the former chief of the Sacramento Metropolitan Fire District and founding partner AP Triton. He joins us now from Napa. Kurt, we know there are several factors contributing to these fires, but how much blame should we place on the decision to build homes in fire-prone areas?
Well, I think historically that is probably one of our largest challenges, that we have historically expanded our city and urban limits out into the wildland-urban interface. And we're placing these structures right directly in the path of these firestorms. And of course, with climate change and the severe droughts that we're experiencing and high winds and low humidities, this is placing entire subdivisions in areas that just really shouldn't be there, unfortunately. And we've learned a lot over the last several decades, and so we're trying to have more stringent building construction standards. Of course, in California, I think we lead the way in that arena, but really trying to limit the amount of exposure of these structures out in the wildland.
So you point out that it's not just the actual structures, the actual homes being built, it's also the infrastructure that's necessary for housing that is presenting the dangers as well. Can you tell us more about what you mean by that?
Well, infrastructure-wise, the further out from a municipality or a city's core that you build, the longer it takes resources to get there. And clearly, in the wildland environment, you're not 4 to 6 minutes away from your nearest fire station. In a lot of cases, you might have the first unit could be 15 to 30 minutes away from the incident. And in some cases, it can be 45 minutes to an hour out in very, very rural locations. So as you build out into these interface areas, out into the wildlands, you really are moving further and further away from an effective gathering of enough resources to battle those fires. In a city, normally within the first 10 to 12 minutes, you would have a full complement of fire suppression equipment and personnel on the scene. In the wildland environment, it could be 45 minutes to an hour.
So are there certain areas then of California where you think, hey, go ahead and buy houses there, but you just better be aware that it's pretty inevitable there's going to be a fire in your area?
Yeah, I think the question really is, well, where isn't an area in California that you're not going to significantly be exposed? With the climate change that's happening, the environmental change, weather-driven events, we've now seen Redding, California. We've seen it in Paradise. We've seen it in Santa Rosa, Napa last year in those fires. And now again in Malibu, where we've got these intense wildland fires that are extraordinarily horrific, that are moving into these populated areas. So I think the biggest issue is to make sure that you have proper clearance, effective exiting strategy, and you take concern to be aware of your surroundings at all times during these wildland seasons.
And of course, being safe is your primary concern, but on top of that, you've also got to worry about your property. I mean, what is all of this going to do to insurance premiums? We've already seen how in the flood-prone areas of this country, the insurance is out of reach for most people. Is that going to happen in California as well?
Yeah, I think it's probably an obvious factor that you're going to have insurance companies that are going to start to take a second and third look at the market. Now, one of the things that we're trying to do in California is be much more proactive than what we have in the past by pre-positioning fire resources ahead of these weather-driven events. This is the first year that we've started to do that. We're gathering data on that. It's really been in place only for about the last couple months. But we are working, of course, together with both the insurance industry, the utilities industry, all stakeholder groups to try to figure out how to address these new dramatic climate-driven events that are going to be the new norm, as the governor in the state of California said, the new paranormal,
right?
The new abnormal. That we're going to be dealing with for the next 50 to 100 years.
Pretty scary stuff. Kurt, over the weekend, the president blamed, quote, gross mismanagement of the forests to these fires in California. What is your reaction to the president's tweet?
Well, that is extremely unfortunate that he would say that, because in California, 60 to 70% of the wildland actually falls under the jurisdiction of the U.S. Forest Service and Bureau of Land Management. And then you have quite a bit that's under the state of California. The governor allocated $150 million to tree mortality That's going to take 20 or 30 years to do that. And again, a majority of the wildlands are in the U.S. Forest Service. I think that was unfortunately an uninformed opinion that the president gave. And we have a very, very real problem out here. And it's really this weather climate change that's occurred. So for him to say, in the face of the brave firefighters and police officers and public safety officials out there that are working 24/7 to protect people's lives, to come out at that time and say that with erroneous information is just very, very, very unfortunate. And really, one must look inside the U.S. Forest Service, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, which runs the Forest Service. When you want to talk about tree mortality and taking care of business, perhaps they should use some inflection, look inside themselves.
Kurt Henke, we thank you so much for your time and sharing your knowledge of this topic with us. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much.